Can you make money growing vegetables at home? Today I'm going to talk to you about how you can make money growing vegetables at home, and if you stick around to the end you'll find out why we don't. Now, it's definitely possible to make money growing vegetables. The question is, how do you go about it, and is it actually worth doing? So what you need to be thinking about is what vegetables you're going to be growing, what infrastructure you're going to be needing, and how much time investment it's going to be taking. To get the most out of your veggie plot, you need to standardize your beds so they're all the same size, the same length. This makes planning so much easier, and a lot of the tools that you use all come in a standard 30-inch, which I think 75 centimeters wide length. That's just what they are. So that is the standard market garden bed width. And most people do those beds straight in the ground and raise them slightly just by throwing the dirt up out of the pathways. You also need to be doing what's called high rotation. To be making a lot of money out of a smaller area, you want plants that are in and out of the ground and give you a decent harvest really quickly. Anything that's a cut and come again is a bigger bonus because it's saving you all that seedling and transplant time. If you can cut and come again 3 times out of a set of lettuce, that is 2 extra lots of seeds that you haven't had to plant and you haven't had to wait until they get big enough to harvest from. The other thing you'll need to do is maximize your sales. So you need to find out where you are getting the very most money for what you have and go that way. So when it comes to choosing crops, you want something that has a high yield, it's popular, so you want people to actually want to eat it and buy it. You want to know how long their days to maturity is. We're aiming for something that's 60 days or less, preferably, so they're in the ground the shortest amount of time possible. You'll also need to work out how much plant you're going to get per square foot or per square meter of your garden space, and how much you can actually sell that for as well. And then of course you need to know how many seasons of the year that particular plant will grow, and whether you need to have it under cover to extend the season or whether it's just a no-go if the weather's cold. There are some plants that are known by market gardeners to be the money spinners, and so often there is a salad mix. And the upside to selling a salad mix is that you can change out what you've got in there depending on what the season is. So over the winter, things like a mustard green and a baby kale will probably make up more of your mix than over the summer, when you're more likely to add more different types of lettuce and beet greens and those sorts of things. Plants like spinach, particular types of leaf lettuce, and arugula, or also known as rocket, they are really great things. You can cut and come again, most of those for at least 2 to 3 times. Sometimes you can even get a 4th cutting out of them. Have you considered growing vegetables from home and selling them? Why haven't you done it yet? Let me know your reasons in the comments below. Microgreens is another option, very profitable, but it does have some real setup costs by the time you buy the trays and the soil and the seeds, and you probably might need some grow lights and a way to water them. However, they can be very profitable if you've got the market where you live to be able to sell them. They're quite popular with restaurants, and some people even buy them to eat them at home. And then the third thing that most market gardeners make good money on is baby root vegetables. So that's where you're looking at baby beets, baby carrots, baby onions, baby turnips, especially the sweet turnips that you can eat raw. A market garden is likely to need some silage tarps or some way of covering the ground to help kill off the weeds. You'll probably need some bug nets or something to keep the cabbage butterflies off of things, and actually wherever you are you're going to have bug problems. Having some bug nets and some hoops that you can put over those, and then of course you're going to need some weights to weigh them down. Deciding whether you want to do some season extension, either by adding low tunnels, in which case you're going to need some plastic that you can put over those same structures, or whether you want to fork out some extra money and put in high tunnels or caterpillar tunnels. All of these have different costs and benefits and different downsides, so it's worth weighing up those. I've put seed on my list twice, so obviously you're going to need some seed. And then you're going to need to think about your amendments for your beds, whether you want to use chemical things or whether you want to go organic or with like compost. All those sorts of things will be inputs that you're going to need to consider the costs of. And then once you've grown your vegetables, there's obviously the cost of transport. You need to be storing them and packing them and marketing them, and these things all cost money as well. It's not just a matter of I have an extra kilo of carrots so I can sell them. However, that can be a really good way to start, is to start small and sell to friends and family. Finding a market for your vegetables that is going to give you a decent amount of income can be a wee bit of a challenge. Farmers markets are wonderful if you've got one in your area. They are quite labor intensive, they're very time intensive, but it is sort of just one day a week, sometimes two, that you're actually manning the stall. But then you've got to think of all the harvest time, packing the van and actually getting there on time as well. CSAs, Community Supported Agriculture, I think is what it stands for. There are different ways of running these days. It used to be that you would ask for an investment from somebody at the beginning of the season, and then they would get sort of a portion of what you grew over the year. So if you had a bad year, they got not so many vegetables. If you had a bumper year, they got lots of extra vegetables. These days, the CSA model, some still run like that, and some have changed to be more like a vegetable box system where you pay a regular amount every week, and they will have, you know, whatever they're growing seasonally. Sometimes people source extra from other farmers. Sometimes you throw in your eggs or some meat. But a CSA is pretty much the winner for both the consumer and the seller. You are getting the best price for your product. It's certainly, you're going to be getting more than you will be selling the product wholesale, either to a restaurant or to a supermarket. But on the other hand, the customer, one, knows the farmer that's growing the stuff, and two, is getting super fresh produce, and three, is probably getting a better deal than what they're getting at the supermarket. And then of course there is the option to supply supermarkets or restaurants. These come with their own limits and regulations. You do have to hunt around to find them. There's a bit of chasing and a bit of sales involved there. So this might not be where you want to start out. However, if you've got some good connections, it might be a perfect option. My 3 big tips are: start small. Start with selling to people you know. Start with growing vegetables you know. Number 2 is keep really good records. You have no idea how important keeping really good records really is. You're not going to remember next year what week it was you sowed what greens and which ones gave you the best harvest. Every single little detail needs to be written down, recorded, and kept somewhere safe. Number 3 would be use debt with caution. Debt can be really helpful, but with a business that you're not 100% sure if it's going to work out, getting yourself into a lot of debt can be a real bother. So you're much better off starting small and investing as you're making money. Now, I seriously considered doing some market gardening and growing some vegetables for profit. I looked into it, I learned a lot, and there's a really great book by Curtis Stone. If you haven't come across him, he's known as the Urban Farmer, I think, on YouTube. I'll put a link to his channel below. His book is a brilliant resource and well worth reading if you're considering doing this. He's laid out everything in there, and it's a really good resource. So I'll put a link to that below for you as well. So we've got an area out here that's relatively flat. It's one of the flatter places on our land, and I thought about it and I considered it, and we would have to terrace it because the reality is market gardens work best on flat beds, so everything's getting the same amount of water. So that, for one, was an off-put, and the biggest reason was I just don't have the time. That was honestly it. Market gardening, especially getting started, you're gonna have to put in a lot of time. It's going to be a lot of man hours to get that soil ready, get the seeds in the ground, babying those seeds along, keeping those rotations going, getting the transplants out, harvesting them, and getting them ready, and on top of that, also doing your own marketing and sales. We were trying to get ourselves set up here. We were still finishing our house. At the time, I think my 6-year-old was sort of a toddler, and life was just too busy. So we decided to actually turn that area into a food forest, which for us, lots more hands off. Eventually, I'm hoping we'll have lots of fruit and maybe some herbs and things from there that we'll be able to sell. And I'm hoping to set up a bit of a nursery to be able to sell trees and plants. But for now, just having some fruit trees planted out there was a lot easier option for me. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have, hit the like button. I will see you in the next one.